let's talk about Multicloud. It was supposed to be this amazing strategy, promising total flexibility, big cost savings, all the innovation you could dream of. But for a whole lot of people, that promise turned into a complete nightmare of complexity. So, what happened? How did this tech revolution go so off the rails? Let's dig in. So, to really get this, let's make it personal. I want you to meet Sarah. She's a fantastic senior developer, the kind of person you want building your next big thing. But her days, they're spent literally wrestling with 3 different cloud consoles. That means 3 sets of roles, 3 sets of tools, and 3 sets of just infuriating quirks. The slide says it perfectly. She wasn't building the future. She was drowning in it. And you know what? That feeling is everywhere. So many developers out there aren't really building anything new. They're just treading water. And that story about Sarah, it really nails the core problem here. You've got this huge, massive gap between the big picture boardroom vision for Multicloud and the painful day-to-day reality for the folks who actually have to, build the software. And here's what that disconnect looks like side by side. I mean, look at this. On one side, you have the promise, right? The stuff that gets sold in the boardroom. We're talking strategic flexibility, optimizing costs, using the absolute best-of-breed services for every task. Sounds incredible, doesn't it? But then you have the painful reality for teams like Sarah's. It's not a dream, it's operational quicksand. It's fragmented everything, it's developer burnout, and here's the real kicker. It ends up strangling the very innovation it was supposed to set free. Okay, so here's the big pivot, the really important thing to understand. The problem wasn't Multicloud itself, not at all. The strategy, it's actually solid. The real failure was in how everyone went about it. Companies they rushed headfirst into this multi-cloud world without any real plan for how to handle the absolute explosion of complexity it was going to create for their most valuable people, their developers. And we're not just talking about feelings here, a bit of frustration. No. This is a real, measurable crisis. We're talking about a crisis of complexity that hits a company's ability to compete and innovate right where it hurts. In fact, let's actually put a number on this pain. So I want you to just stop and think about this for a second. On any given day, how much productive time do you think a developer, someone exactly like Sarah, actually loses? I mean, time spent just fighting with tools, toggling between a dozen different windows, debugging weird environment issues, instead of, actually writing code? 33%. A third. Think about that. 1/3 of their time is just gone. Wasted. And this isn't some back-of-the-napkin guess. This is according to research from Amazon. This isn't a small annoyance. It's a full-on productivity hemorrhage. To put it another way, for every 3 developers you hire, you're basically paying one of them to just fight with complexity. It's like an invisible tax. Now just imagine what your team could build if you got that one person's full time back. And that right there, that brings us to the real diagnosis, the real problem. See, this was never really an infrastructure problem. We thought it was, but it wasn't. It has always been a developer experience problem, a DevX problem. We were looking for the fix down in the server room, trying to rewire the plumbing, when the real solution was sitting on the developer's laptop the entire time. And the payoff for focusing on DevX? It is absolutely staggering. I want you to really hear this number. If you find and fix just one tiny 5-minute friction point that a developer hits every single day, you get back almost 16 full days of productive time per developer per year. That's more than 3 work weeks back in your pocket. It proves it's not about some giant multi-year overhaul. It's about finding and knocking down those small, annoying hurdles that over time add up to become a giant wall. So once you realize this, it completely changes how you think about the problem. It leads to this huge mental shift. The goal isn't to get really, really good at using every single cloud. The real solution is to shift your focus away from the clouds and onto the people who have to live and breathe this stuff every single day. Let me tell you a quick story, a tale of 2 teams. It really makes this clear. So you've got Team A. They're what we'll call cloud-centric. Their whole strategy is to train every developer on the nitty-gritty details of AWS, Azure, and GCP. And the result? Well, they end up spending a mind-blowing 60 to 70% of their time just on operations. Feature delivery? It grinds to a crawl. Then you have Team B. They're developer-centric. Their approach is totally different. They build a simple internal platform that basically makes the clouds invisible to the developers. The result for them? They spend less than 20% of their time on ops, and they ship new features at lightning speed. For them, the cloud is just an implementation detail they almost never have to think about. Okay, so obviously we all want to be Team B, right? But how? How do you actually pull this off? How do you make all that multi-cloud complexity just disappear? Well, it's not magic. It's about having a really smart, really deliberate architectural strategy. And this is the 4-part blueprint. Let's walk through it. First up, strategic alignment. That just means every single decision you make about a cloud has to be tied directly to a business goal, no exceptions. Second, you need standardization. This is key. You use consistent interfaces like infrastructure as code. Think of it like a universal translator for clouds. This gives developers one simple, repeatable workflow no matter which cloud is underneath. Then, step 3 is unified operations. You need one single place, one dashboard to see everything, monitoring, security, and especially cost. No more hunting around. And finally, number 4, portability by design. This means you use technologies like containers from the get-go, so you always have the freedom and the option to move an application without a painful, massive rewrite. And you know, when you actually put this framework into practice, something really amazing starts to happen. That thing that was your biggest source of pain, your biggest headache, multi-cloud, it actually transforms. It goes from being a burden to being a genuine superpower, a real competitive advantage. And the results aren't just fuzzy feelings. They are concrete, measurable wins. We're talking about companies seeing their deployment frequency skyrocket, often by 40, 50, even 60%. At the same time, their infrastructure costs drop by 20% or more just through smart automation. And maybe most importantly, their error rates absolutely plummet because you've gotten rid of all that manual, mistake-prone configuration. This is what the promise of multi-cloud was supposed to be all along. It's finally being delivered. So let's circle all the way back to where we started, back to Sarah. Because in this new world, her story has a totally different ending. That same architecture that used to feel like an anchor dragging her down now feels like a superpower. Today, she can deploy her code to any cloud her team needs with just a single, simple command. She's not drowning anymore. She's finally doing what she was meant to do. She's building the future. Which brings us to one last really critical question. After all of this, after seeing the problem and the solution, is the complexity of multi-cloud really the problem we should be focused on solving? The answer is no, absolutely not. The goal was never to get better at mastering all that complexity. The goal is, and it always should have been, to make the complexity itself disappear. It's about building a platform so smooth, so seamless, that your developers can finally stop wrestling with their tools and get back to doing what they do best, building what's next. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.